Today, we're going to talk about a band that has been at the top of their game for over 60 years. The Rolling Stones. Seriously, their story is one of the wildest in music history, and we're going to break down exactly how they managed to pull it off. And that really is the big question, isn't it? How does any band stay together, stay relevant, and keep selling out massive stadiums for 6 whole decades? Well, that's what we're here to figure out. So let's rewind. Picture this. It's London, 1962. It's a time of huge change in music, and a few young guys who were obsessed with old American records were about to create something the world had never, ever heard before. You know, the heart of the band really started with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. They were actually childhood friends who'd lost touch, but then, by total chance, they bumped into each other at a train station. And the thing that brought them back together? They realized they were both holding these American blues records, artists like Chuck Berry and Muddy Waters. It was that shared love, that passion for this raw music that kicked the whole thing off. And right from the start, they wanted to be completely different from everything else on the radio. See, the pop charts back then were full of really polished songs and singers with squeaky clean images. The Stones, they aimed for the exact opposite. They wanted a raw, gritty, high-energy sound and a rebellious attitude that was designed to really shake things up. So, okay, they had the attitude down, but how did they actually turn their love for the blues into a sound that would take over the world? Well, it all came down to a really simple but incredibly powerful partnership. Their manager basically pushed them to write their own songs, and it turns out they had a natural gift for it. The process was usually pretty straightforward. Keith Richards would come up with the music, those killer guitar parts. Then Mick Jagger would write these amazing lyrics about everyday life that people could really connect with. And finally, they'd get into the studio and just experiment, always pushing to find new sounds. And wow, did that songwriting process work? It wasn't long before they created their first absolutely massive global hit. In the mid-60s, they dropped I Can't Get No Satisfaction, and that song just launched them into total superstardom. It was everywhere, and it was all thanks to one unforgettable musical hook. And that hook is what musicians call a guitar riff. A riff is just a short, super catchy, repeated musical idea. It's the part that gets stuck in your head for days. And the riff that Keith Richards came up with for Satisfaction, it's got to be one of the most famous in the history of music, no question. So, how did he get that totally unique, kind of gritty sound for that riff? He used this new piece of gear called a fuzzbox. It's basically a little pedal that distorts the guitar's signal, making it sound fuzzy and really aggressive. At the time, this was a completely new sound, and it just goes to show how the band was already innovating, using new technology to create something legendary. Okay, so with a monster hit under their belt and a totally unique sound, the Rolling Stones were ready to explode. They became a key part of what was called the British invasion. This moment when bands from the UK just suddenly became wildly popular in America and all across the globe. A huge part of their appeal was their image. With the long hair and this defiant attitude, the media immediately labeled them the bad boys of music. They were constantly trying to set them up as rivals to other, more clean-cut bands. But here's the thing. That image didn't hurt them one bit. In fact, it made millions of young fans love them even more. And all that love from the fans translated into just staggering success. We're talking #1 hits in dozens of countries and selling millions upon millions of records. Their concerts became these massive, chaotic events that really cemented their status as one of the biggest bands on the entire planet. But the Stones' influence, it went way beyond the music charts. They became this huge cultural phenomenon, shaping how people dressed, how they thought, and how they saw the world around them. A perfect example of their branding power is their logo. The tongue and lips design first showed up in 1971, and think about it. It has become one of the most recognizable symbols on Earth. It's way more than just a band logo. It's a global brand, a true symbol of rebellion. Their impact was just everywhere. They were setting fashion trends with their clothes and their hair. Mick Jagger, with his flamboyant stage outfits, became a genuine style icon. For a whole generation of kids, this band represented a sense of freedom and independence. And honestly, by being so open about their lives, they completely changed the public's relationship with celebrities forever. So all of this brings us right back to our original question. How in the world did they keep this going for 60 years? Well, the answer really lies in their incredible, almost unbelievable ability to endure and adapt. I mean, over the decades, the band went through some massive changes. Members left, they were replaced, some retired, and sadly, some passed away. But through it all, that core partnership of Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, that was the glue that held the band together and just kept it moving forward. They also had to navigate this constantly changing world of music. Just think about all the trends that have come and gone: disco, punk, grunge, synth pop. The Rolling Stones survived them all. Sometimes they'd adapt their sound a little bit, but they always stayed true to their rock and roll roots. And their creative output has just been relentless. Across their career, they've released over 30 studio albums. And that's not even counting all the live albums and compilations. That is a massive body of work that kept them in the public eye decade after decade. And believe me, it was not an easy ride. They faced serious legal troubles. They had these intense arguments where they sometimes didn't speak to each other for years, and they dealt with the immense pressure of fame. But their bond as musicians, it was just so strong that they always found a way to come back together and let the music fix things. And that brings us all the way to today. The Rolling Stones are now seen as the elder statesmen of rock. I mean, they are deeply respected by the entire music world, and they still sell out the biggest stadiums on the planet whenever they decide to go on tour. It's incredible. So, in the end, the Rolling Stones achieved this unbelievable longevity through a mix of raw passion, constant innovation, sheer resilience, and an unbreakable musical bond. Which kind of leaves us with one last thought. When you look at the music of today, who will be the icons we're all still talking about 60 years from now?